Let's move on to Travis, who writes, Hi James, I've always been curious about the true translation of bin Laden's video after 9/11. Some have claimed that he did not confess in this video, but instead made other claims about government involvement. Have you had anyone personally translate the video? While I don't buy the official story of 9/11, I'm not sure I trust the authenticity of some of the translations as to what bin Laden actually said. Thanks. Thank you for the question, Travis. And in fact, this relates to a couple of pieces of media I put out several years ago, so I'm sure most people in the audience haven't seen or heard them. One is interview 285 with Mayor Oserin, and the other is episode 174 on Patriot mythology. I'll put the links in the show notes so you can follow them, but the long story short is that this video, which is often referred to as the Fat Bin Laden video in conspiracy circles, because they take one frame of bin Laden with his head to the side and they put that side by side with a picture of bin Laden and they say, look, this fat person is clearly an actor and it's not even a good actor. It looks nothing like Osama. But that in itself is a false interpretation of a single frame of a video that's been converted from PAL to NTSC, and there's elongation in the horizontal dimension and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, watch the whole video from the very beginning when bin Laden walks into the room, and it is clearly a tall, lanky man who looks exactly like Osama bin Laden. It isn't a fat bin Laden actor playing bin Laden. If you watch the actual video instead of just looking at the one screenshot that people will often show you. But anyway, that being said, it's a real video of Osama bin Laden, and the story is that the troops, the NATO forces, the crusading NATO forces, just stumbled across this. They were raiding houses in Jalalabad, and they raided this random house and randomly found this videotape and popped it in, and wouldn't you know it, it's Osama bin Laden confessing to 9/11. Wow. That's the official story, which of course is total crackpot nonsense, which Mayor Oserin completely eviscerates in his article on the subject. And we go through that in the interview. His story, and he constructs this from the evidence from the tape and blah, 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 but his story is that this was part of a sting operation and that's why they couldn't reveal where this came from. But at any rate, the real question is the translation, because, well, is this Osama bin Laden? Sure seems to be. Is it after 9/11? Sure seems to be, given the timeline of what we know from the tape. And is he confessing to 9/11? Well, Mayor Oserin, for his part, I don't want to put anything on him, he seems to think so, yes, absolutely. He has no problem with the translation, the Pentagon-supplied translation. But in episode 174 of the podcast, Patriot Mythology, I go through this in more detail, and I point out that the German TV show Das Erst commissioned their own translation of the video, and they found that at every key point where the official Pentagon transcript has these words that seem to indicate that bin Laden had foreknowledge, they calculated the attack, blah, 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 all of those key points are either mistranslated or just completely inserted. There's no way to justify the use of that word in that translation, according to this German TV show. And this was, I think, 2002 that they did their own translation of the video, and they found the Pentagon's messing with this. This isn't a good translation. Bin Laden isn't confessing. Now that's a pretty important thing, right? I haven't seen that followed up anywhere at all by anyone. And I don't speak Arabic, so I don't know. Don't you think that would be a good idea for an open source investigation? I mean, if only someone in the Corbett Report audience could speak Arabic. Maybe we could get a different take on this. Maybe this could be the biggest story of the last 2 decades. Hey, bin Laden video confession was mistranslated by the Pentagon. That's a pretty big story. So let's keep that in mind for a open source investigation in the future, because I think that is pretty important.